Good greetings, students of the internet. Now, thank you to those who are sending their feedback for me to clarify some of the sub concepts that I normally mention in some of the videos. When you send that feedback, I know that at least some of the information is getting where it's intended to get. Now, the the reason why I'm teaching this as an extra to level 3 and level 4 students is so that is because uh, most of these students are going into the market and they will be dealing with the entry level products. So those are products basically that are like the primitive or the low cost products. So for example, with inverters, they're going to deal with the basic inverters that have got that are landlocked. No, they've got no allowance for you to program any other thing apart from what the manufacturer has done. And also the charge controllers or the all-in-one inverters, which have got very little allowance for you to add extra features or programs for it to work with. So once a student has done system sizing and they have gotten their component capacities from the inverter all the way back to the panels. The critical part between the charge controller, inverter, battery, or if it's an all-in-one system, the charge controller has been inbuilt in the inverter. A student is supposed to understand that the if the inverter and the battery are relying on the primitive communication protocol, the channel 1 communication protocol, if the inverter and the battery are relying on that protocol, the student is supposed to pick an inverter that has been pre-programmed for the batteries he's going to use for that system. And why is this essential? Since inverters in this particular category will basically relying on the voltage levels of the battery, not the state of charge, the inverter will either be stopping the charging process or starting the charging process too early, or yeah, it might either be starting the charging process too early and stopping it early, or starting the charging process too early and stopping it way too late, or in between fail to manage when to we are going to learn about charging profiles. This is just a head start. So we have got something called a charging profile, and basically, just to introduce you, a charging profile means when a battery is at a certain stage, it needs a certain amount of voltage and a certain amount of current for it to charge effectively. So some batteries, uh, depending on the battery structure of the battery type, will need X amount of voltage. Now, because some of the inverters have not been pre-programmed to understand the battery type, they'll just be picking voltage from the panel and sending it all to the battery. And this normally affects the battery chemistry and state of charge. The voltage level or the charging voltage affects the state of charge. So you might find at some point the battery is indicating 14.4 volts or 14.2 volts for most the common units, the lead acid and I think the gel batteries, but we'll confirm this. Normally will indicate for the 12-volt batteries will stop charging at around some will stop charging at around 13.8, some will stop charging at around 14.4 volts. But this is the voltage level, this is not the state of charge. Remember, a battery could have a maximum voltage level at it could be capped at 14.4 volt, but the state of charge is as low as 60% or 80%. So once a battery has hit 14.4 volts, the inverter is supposed to change the charging profile from the bulk voltage to now probably the absorption voltage or the float voltage, depending on the battery type, so that it will keep sending a small amount of voltage to ensure that now the battery is balancing the individual cells within its pack, so that each cell will go all the way to 100% state of charge. And that is important information for students. So why is it important? A client might call you and tell you that my system is always full at 100% by midday or by 2 p.m. But immediately we start using it as early as 10 p.m. or 11 p.m., the system has already drained all the way to 50% state of charge. And you might struggle understanding what's happening. So you might fail to diagnose that problem well, and probably encourage your client to go for an extra panel, or and that is not the case. The case is sometimes whatever information the inverter is reading is not the actual information in the battery. And this, we explained this issue on the communication protocol that we talked about, the primitive communication protocol, where the system is not reading any other information apart from the voltage level. So to guide you further, we shall do a small deep dive. And the advantage of this is that we are not learning, we are not limited with specific avenues, learning avenues. So we shall do a small deep dive on the importance of understanding charging profiles. After we understand charging profiles, we shall look at the charging profiles of each and every particular battery type. Even if it's not deep enough, we shall just do a small, a brief introduction for you to understand that. And then after that, we shall also look at how charging profiles is related to the communication protocol. So in this case, this is a heads up. If, for example, you're using a system that your panels are generating this amount of voltage, X amount of voltage, and all this voltage is being sent into the batteries, your batteries might be struggling or suffering. It might be good for you, for the eye, or for your mental state, to assume that because my panels are generating maximum voltage and all this voltage is being pushed into the batteries, your batteries are charging correct. So it might be good for you, but for the batteries, it's not good to continuously send X amount of voltage all the time during the day, or during the day, during the charging phase, because charging profiles vary depending on batteries. We shall start with the lead acid battery, we shall go to the gel battery, we shall go to the tubular ones, and then the lithium ion. And with lithium ion, we shall look at the unmanaged lithium ion batteries. For the managed ones, where we have an internal BMS, those are advanced systems. Most level 3 and level 4 students won't. Okay, if they're lucky, fine. If the But I know most of them will be tasked with installing the other systems. Now, for systems where we have got the battery comes with its own BMS, and it also has got external data link between the battery and the inverter. Those are some of the best systems in the market, where relying on the RS communication protocol, or the RS, so, or the CAN bus communication protocol. So with batteries that have got those provisions, those are the best systems. If you get a client who is willing to spend extra to get a system that has got the CAN bus or the RS communication protocol, that's good. If you get a client who is interested in solar, but they do not have enough cash at that moment to invest into a system that has got these extra communication protocols, you as a technician now, from having graduated from being a student into a technician, are you able, or are you capable of combining or your components in such a way that you are getting an inverter that has been built specifically to charge a specific kind of batteries, not one or not two. It could be one actually, or it could be two, but are you capable of picking an inverter that has got features that are good, or have been pre-programmed to charge a particular kind of batteries? And if that's not the case, are you in a position to size your system in such a way that the panels, at no given point, will they be pushing voltage to go against the charging profile of the battery pack? And this is for those students also who will be handling 2 or 3 batteries at max, or 4. When we dive deep into the charging profiles, we'll also understand how combining batteries affects the charging profiles also, because the charging profile of a lead acid battery changes depending on also the size of the, or the capacity of the battery bank. So if the bigger the battery bank, the more complicated the charging profile becomes. So we will look at all that, and I've compiled a section of it, but let me just do the whole thing. uh, If I'll manage, I'll release it all at once. If I won't manage, I'll just be releasing it in bits until we now all understand why communication protocols are essential for charging profiles. And this is for my students who are doing level 3 and level 4. You are at the most disadvantaged position because the market is releasing products to you with no full information on how best to combine them or how best to handle them.